The purpose of the journey was to have another adventure where I took on a more leadership role. An adventure where I was responsible for organising a lot more of the logistics and so forth. I have grown up doing all sorts of things like this, and the Hinchinbrook hike was to be another one of those adventures. The purpose was to also just do it for the award. It's weird to have to write down all these things we do to prove that we have done them. When I did my bronze Duke of Edinburgh, I sailed the tall ship South Passage for 5 days and 4 nights. I heard that some students put that down for their gold adventurous journey. I'm not sure how you can compare one to the other. According to the Queensland Parks and Wildlife website, Hinchinbrook Island is dominated by mountainous backbone featuring peaks such as Mount Bowen, Mount Diamantina, Mount Stratalock, Mount Pitt, Mount Burnett and Mount Barra Castle. These mountains comprise of 2 different rock types. The main mass centered on Mount Bowen consists of granite, while the mass projecting northwest and including Mount Pitt and Mount Burnett consists of silicate volcanics. The granite of the main mountain mass has weathered into spectacular, often jagged peaks. The island is separated from the mainland by the narrow Hinchinbrook Channel, which represents the flooded valley of the Herbert River. Most of the island is mountainous with steep slopes and only narrow coastal plains. Near George's Point, there is an extensive deposit of sand, and at the northeastern extremity of the island, a peninsula to the north. This peninsula consists of 4 separate rocky outcrops, joined by sand dunes. Generally, these dunes are low-lying, but can reach heights of up to 60 metres near the northern end of Ramsay Bay. The sheltered side of these dunes supports an extensive mangrove and salt flat area on cultivar and alluvial deposits, with numerous deep channels. Another extensive mangrove area is the present between Gungara and Deluge inlets, and numerous smaller occurrences are scattered around the coast. The traditional custodians of the lands are the Bunjinji Aboriginal people. We were not able to connect with any of the local custodians of the lands, as we weren't sure how to even go about this. In our research phase of the island, we were not able to find any links on the Parks and Wildlife websites to help us link to the custodians. Our research taught us that there are remnants of fish traps and middens on the island. These are evidence of the long culture and history on the island. On this particular hike, we were not able to see any fish traps or middens, but my dad spent some time around the island and said that he would take us one day to the location of a midden that he knows about. A shell midden is a place where the debris from eating shellfish is placed. After hundreds or even thousands of years, these middens can become very large. My sister and I met with Jamie, our assessor, during the planning phase, 3 times to plan for the trip. We discussed possible trips the first time we met. We talked about doing a downriver canoe trip, but ruled that out because our practice journey was an expedition hike. After some talk, we chose to do the Hinchinbrook hike, as Jamie had done this before, and my sister and I have heard so much about it and have always wanted to do the hike. Jamie had asked us to complete a trip sheet and a checklist of things to do before the second meeting. We discussed logistics and issues around the train, gear to bring and meal planning. We felt we needed to bring an EPIRB just in case. We confirmed the meet point and last minute details at the 3rd meeting. I booked the boat to and from the island. Jamie had confirmed these details with the boat, as we were not adults. My sister booked the campsites on the Parks and Wildlife website. All in all, the planning was really good, as Jamie gave us enough guidance so that we knew what we were doing, but not too much that we had to do things for ourselves. Training for this hike wasn't really anything different from what I usually do. My family is very active, and so from a physical point of view, I just did what we always do. I swim 5 times a week and run about 2 or 3 times a week anyway, so there was no extra training I needed to do. I did research the island with my sister, and we also studied the map so that we would be able to understand the distances and direction we would take. We did this with Jamie at 2 of our meetings. This type of training was very useful, and I would say it covered everything we needed to be prepared for the journey. In the planning meeting, we discussed tide times, as these would impact crossing some of the tidal creeks, on the last day especially. We booked the campsites based on the tide times, so that we would have low tides around the middle of the day. Weather? We chose to go in July because that is the dry season in North Queensland, and we would expect good weather. We checked the BOM website numerous times a week before the departure to know what we were in for. Apart from some very light drizzle on the first morning, we had perfect walking weather. At our second meeting, we did the pre-evaluation of the journey. I thought that our planning was very good, and of course our fitness is excellent. Of high importance was the discussion about emergency procedures. Jamie already knew about mobile phone reception points and had discussed this with the boat owner. Jamie was going to be in charge of organising to hire the EPIRB for our trip. We felt we were well prepared for any emergency situation that may arise. Looking at the meal planning trip sheet, you will see that we organised our meals as follows. Dinners were group cooking meals that were shared. We ate primarily on dehydrated meals that can be bought from adventure shops. We used the Backcountry brand. These meals are nutritionally balanced. Breakfasts were our own responsibility. I used the cereal and powdered milk that are pre-packed before leaving in amounts suitable for my individual breakfast. I also had a cup of tea each morning with water boiled on the jet boil. Lunch, for me, was always a wrap that I made tuna, tomatoes and avocados. Snacks, I always bring a slice that my sister makes at home, and we share these with the group. I also love dalmades from a tin that I tried a few years ago on another trip. I love these. Nutritionally, all the meals were wholesome and full of energy and vitamins. The only change I would make would be to buy the tuna in soft packs rather than little tins, as this became an issue when managing rubbish. It would have been easier just to bring the soft packs. Planning for water was not an issue once we read the track notes and map. The track notes indicate where water was available on a hike. We only needed to carry 2 litres of water for each section. The campsites all had water from creeks and rivers that were drinkable, so we carried enough water just to keep us hydrated on the hike. From reading the map and talking to others who had done the hike, we also knew that we would cross numerous freshwater creeks along the way that allowed us to refill. All of this was discussed at our second meeting, where we were able to read the track notes and map that showed us the distances and water spots. Water management went very well. We of course used minimal impact practices that we had been taught years ago with regard to washing. The planning sheets or trip sheets show the list of gear that we took. Tents and cooking gear was shared, and personal items were obviously brought alone. In our planning meeting, we discussed the gear that we needed for the hike. We wore good practical hiking gear for sun safety and comfort. Due to the cool evenings, we made sure that we had some warm gear, but it is far north Queensland, and we didn't need too much. It was basically a track we didn't need gaiters or heavy jute boots. See to the trip sheet for the list of clothing. As I said above, we planned for good weather and also bought rain and warm gear. I didn't forget anything, and I don't think I bought too much either. I've always been taught that good items to bring are those with multi-purpose. For example, my raincoat was light and I used it to keep warm at night. Also, layering is a good idea for warmth, without bulk. A light long sleeve shirt for the day. Good planning was the key. We discussed these items in our second planning meeting. Jamie discussed first aid with us in the second meeting. We brainstormed things that we would need. Basically, we bought items to deal with cuts, abrasions, blisters, and snakebite bandages. Nothing was missing, and we didn't anything extra. All the gear was very good. It did its job, and we didn't forget anything. The plan was to sleep in tents the entire time. I enjoy sharing the tent load with others. We cooked on jet boils. We shared the carrying of this and always cooked as a group. As the hike is in a national park, there was a total fire ban, so we did all the cooking on jet boils. Parks and Wildlife manage the island, so there are drop toilets at the campsites. I know quite a few knots from my sailing experience, but I didn't use them on the hike, as the tent was a standard pegging design with the usual ropes. In summary, I think my campcraft was very good. I felt comfortable in these tasks and all the hiking. I enjoyed that the area was a sensitive environment and our practices were always about minimal impact. Our group used very good minimal impact practices. We used a carry in, carry out philosophy. We left no rubbish behind or fire scars, as fires are not permitted. When washing, we always went well away from waterways, and we didn't use soap. Toileting was in the drop toilets provided by the Parks and Wildlife. I'm very proud that I think we had a very minimal impact. Jamie always shared the leadership role with us. She would make sure that we weren't following her. Instead, she would simply ask questions like, "Where are we headed now?" Or, "Guys, sort out where you're going to put up the tents." Sometimes we would ask a question and she would say, "What do the track notes say?" I think my leadership skills are very good. I had a lot of experience in these situations and Jamie gave me the opportunity to take the lead many times. I was always taught to lead by action, not words. The journey helped me have confidence and reinforce the skills that I already have, and for this I am very proud. Group morale was great. I liked the way we always talked things through and asked each other about what it was we wanted to do. We were all very comfortable around each other. Day 1. Day of travel to Hinchinbrook Island. Checking weather forecasts for the following days. Camping the night at Lucinda. Day 2. Boat ride to Ramsey Bay, where the Thorsbourne Trail officially starts. The goal of Day 2 was to hike from Ramsey Bay to a secret spot between Little Ramsey and Boulder Bay. On our hike to the secret spot, we made a small detour to see the view at the top of Nina Peak, which was well worth the walk up the mountain. Overall, the hike was worth the walk. As we arrived at the secret spot, we were greeted with a small freshwater stream running into the ocean. As we sat on the beach that evening, we witnessed many animals playing and feeding in front of the bay. That night we saw 2 turtles, many large fish, and a pod of dolphins. Day 3. Today we plan to hike from the secret spot to Zoe Bay. We hiked the 10.5 kilometers in just under 6 hours, which allowed us to spend time at the most beautiful and clearest waterfall. Zoe Falls was a 900-meter walk from where we made camp and was well worth it after a long day of hiking. We spent hours swimming in the pristine and clear waters under the falls. Day 4. Today's objective was to get from Zoe Bay to Mulligan Falls. The hike went for 7.5 kilometers over very mountainous terrain. which meant it took just over 6 hours. Along the way, we had a break at Diamantina Creek, which had the clearest waters and had an almost limited supply of brave little yabbies that were willing to come right up to your hands and have a nibble at your fingers. It wasn't far between Diamantina Creek and Mulligan Falls, which had the coldest water I had ever felt. The waterfall was stunning, but the water was freezing. We spent hours looking at the waterfall after having a quick swim in the waters under the fall. Day 5, our last day of hiking. Today we went from Mulligan Falls to George's Point, where we were picked up by boat. The last part of our walk was along the beach, which never end. It was the best way to end the trip. Walking along the beach, looking back and seeing the towering hills and cliffs of the island. This was a trip of a lifetime, and I'm waiting for the day now where I can take my friends to see the amazing island.